Marcus Cicero, quote, "A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for she is known and carries her banner openly. But the traitor moves amongst those within the gate freely, her sly whispers rustling through all the alleys, heard in the very halls of government itself. For the traitor appears not a traitor. She speaks in accents familiar to her victims and she wears their face and their arguments. She appeals to the baseness that lies deep in the hearts of all men and women. She rots the soul of the nation. She works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of the city. She infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to fear. The traitor is the plague." Business owners, how are you doing? This is Daryl Guberman. We have a very special guest here today, Rosa DeLauro. Let me bring her up. Hold on a sec. Rosa, hold on. She's been in office far too long. Anyway, business owners, this video today, Rosa, you should step down already. This video today is Representative Rosa DeLauro, Connecticut, takes Lockheed hush money disbursements while China approves Sikorsky purchase. I know it's from 2015, but most of you in Connecticut and throughout the country don't know the devious dealings of Rosa DeLauro. We're going to get into this very swiftly. I hope this video is going to be short, but I don't know. It's a long time. I think she's been in office for almost 40 years. So with that being said, please take your time, watch this, and get an education. My name is Daryl Guberman. I am the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. I have assisted companies in manufacturing quality and also ISO certification in all derivatives. My background is aerospace, medical implants, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution, where we dealt with every industry under the sun. The reason why I'm standing up here with the Chinese flag covering up the American flag is that you will see that Rosa DeLauro's impropriety when it came to Lockheed Martin purchasing Sikorsky Aircraft in 2015, and you will see it now. We have another person, a special person here, who got interviewed, or actually inquisitioned, back on November 15, 2020, and he talked about TikTok. But how detrimental TikTok is because it's from China, and that China is the degradation of the United States. Here he is, Mr. Christopher Wray. Mr. Christopher Wray. I think he works. I think the circus came back to town in Washington, and he's part of that. And the reason why we have him in this circus uniform is that you're going to see between 2015 and 21, the FBI was being watched over and controlled by communist China. You will see that very shortly. But he said this in one of his interviews to Congress. His voice sounds the same again, and he's beating a drum. And I think the drum is made in China that he's beating on. But it says, Christopher Wray, FBI, says the whole of the Chinese society is a threat to the U.S. and that Americans must step up to defend themselves. Well, Chris, you may think that, but you have Rosa DeLauro giving the thumbs up when Lockheed Martin worked with an international regulator, communist China, and they closed the deal. And by the way, Chris, real quick, and you'll see it in this presentation. In 2009, Lockheed Martin got hacked by China, taking the F-35. They also sit on ANSI, the American National Standards Institute board. They also sat at the time on the International Accreditation Forum Incorporated in Delaware, who was controlled again by China, communist China, between 2015 and 21. Also, that Chinese national has China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7, look it up, Chris, which mandates espionage. So there's Lockheed Martin sitting on ANSI. They sit on ANSI over by the FAA, the DOT, the DOJ, and also the FBI. They're sitting right by you guys. On top of that, on the IAF, Chris, You have Pakistan and Iran, who admitted to harboring some of the terrorists of 9/11. In fact, Pakistan was harboring Osama bin Laden, the mastermind of 9/11. Isn't that quaint? And Lockheed Martin, at that time, was considered an associate member, which meant they voted on policy. Our number one contractor for military goods, sitting over by countries who killed Americans. Isn't that nice? I guess because they make missiles and all that to kill people. It's well, what is, it is. But anyway, I am not saying this about the Iranian people. I am not saying this about the Pakistani people, but about the leadership, Chris. Just like you. Absolutely. And let's go on further. 2009, Lockheed gets hacked by China. 2012, a division of United Technologies, Sikorsky Aircraft, gets hacked by China. In 2015, Lockheed Martin goes to buy Sikorsky Aircraft from United Technologies. And by the way, UTC also sits on ANSI's board. They're all sitting together over by you guys, the FBI, the DOT, the FAA. And it states in the Connecticut Mirror, and we have that too, with China's okay, Lockheed Martin closes in on the purchase of Sikorsky Aircraft because they're an international regulator. After China took the technology from Lockheed, from Sikorsky, you have the four people, Rosa DeLauro is one of them, who basically praised Lockheed Martin for working with communist China. And you will see that, Chris. So sit down, relax, and Rosa, what the hell is wrong with your hair, for God's sake? Purple? Oy vey. Anyway, by the way, Chris, just to solidify this came out of the Washington Post. You see the three little highlights there that shows the different programs that were taken, the T-700 engine, the Black Hawk UH-60, and also the F-35. You don't make this up, Chris. We're going to continue. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on me, okay? My approval from ANSI ANAB, which I didn't want, but they did it anyway. Why? Because, as Dave Levy said, and he's coming up, this is a smart guy. I can't get anything over on him. I can't disparage him. I can't disgrace him. Well, here, sit down and relax. Dave Levy, I gave a speech at the American Society for Equality. At the time, Rosa and Chris, thank you for coming, by the way. At the time, I know the holidays upon us. Happy holidays. But at the time, Chris and Rosa, and by the way, Rosa, I remember your staff used to call my mom and ask her to help you out with the votes because, you know, if it was Sylvia, she'd help you out just like she did with Lieberman and all the rest of that. So I know these things, business owners. It's not like I don't know Rosa DeLauro. I know what my mom did. And my mom said this, by the way, my dear departed mom. She said that if you can, and this was her exact words, she said, she was the big absentee ballot person. She said, if you can control the absentee ballots, you can control the election. And that's coming from a woman who had over 50 plus years experience in politics. So here we go. So I gave a speech at the American Society for Equality. Gentleman Dave Levy was there. He's a Region 3 Deputy Director of the ASQ. At the time, the American Society for Equality and the American National Standards Institute owned ANAB, the American National Crediting Board, 100%, 50 and 50. This is what he said. He said that Dave Levy said there is no restriction on you doing business unaccredited, accredited. We are accredited. And as I said before, ANAB has no problem with what you're doing. In fact, we support you, sir. So Rosa and Chris, would you say that would be at least a 50% attaboy, or that they gave me carte blanche, I guess? So in 2016, Mr. Randy Doty, who in 2014, you'll see an email that he sent us just to corroborate all this mess. In 2014, he was the vice president of the American National Crediting Board, which was owned 50-50 at the time by ASQ and ANSI. And he was also the IAF chairman, International Accreditation Forum, which was incorporated in Delaware, which it is. And he was also on the tax report 990 as the principal on the tax report. This is what he said. He basically approved us. He invited us to join either the IAF or ANAB or both. This was in 2016. We're going to show you a flow chart, Rosa and Chris, that in 2015, he handed over the IAF to Communist China, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. I'm not going to go into the big spiel now. It's coming up. I'll save that for a little bit. But how as a proud American, how as I a proud American, and all the mess that had been done with hacking Lockheed, hacking United Technologies, having China there, which is a cybersecurity risk on an American company like the International Accreditation Forum, how could I do that? That's like giving up my American citizenship. I said, forget about it. I'm not going to do that. But he gave us that opportunity to join. So there's the other 50%. And to solidify that, Chris and Rosa, this is what happened. And I will read it to you. But we recognize and accept. Do you hear that? But we recognize and accept that there are conformity assessment bodies and accreditation bodies, such as your body and your accreditation body, that are not part of the IF and ILAC structure. While my colleagues and I at ANAB can attest to the confidence in the integrity and competence of registers accredited by IF member accreditation bodies, we cannot attest this for your body. Well, let me just say this, Chris and Rosa. You have Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson that sit on ANSI's board. You also have the factor that sitting over there on ANSI's board is the FDA, the USDA, the FBI, the CDC, NIH, etc. You have the factor that the FDA approved ANAB to do third-party audits, and they sit on ANAB's board as well at that time. And, excuse me, you have the factor that both Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson skipped quality processes and had recalls on many, many vials of COVID injection. They skipped quality product processes and standards, and they sit right on ANSI, the guru of processes and quality and voluntary consensus standards, which is a big fraud. We're going to continue on. Randy Doherty said an IAF MLA is equivalent in accreditation to ANAB, which means this, which means if the China National Accreditation Services, and I think we're going to get it here, if they're equivalent to ANAB, that means ANAB is also an underwriter, which means ANSI ANAB take full responsibility for anything happening in quality failures. Though they will say to you, Chris and Rosa, that we only certify the system. No. Once the government on government contracts, and I showed this in other films, that because you have it on a government contract, that it states that ANAB is an underwriter for the International Accreditation Forum. You have the factor Iran and Pakistan are IAF MLAs, which mean in essence, they can come here to Lockheed and Boeing and do a certification audit or a register audit, whatever it takes. And you have the factor that North Korea and Libya were also on the IF, which is incorporated in Delaware. And they got their certificate taken away because of lack of payment. ANSI and ANAB. Well, ANSI is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation that harbors both federal agencies and corporations on board. We're going to go through this again, Chris and Rosa, because Rosa, this is very embarrassing for you as a supposed leader in Connecticut. I can't even talk. Anyway, you have Randy Doherty, the vice president of ANAB, the chairman of the IAF, in 2015, and also on the IAF tax form. He handed over leadership to the IAF to this communist Chinese national who's been involved with our quality, Rosa and Chris, for over 1994. That's a long time. He is also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services, equivalent in accreditation to an ANAB accredited certificate. And he certified the laboratory that is in Wuhan, the Bio-Level 4 laboratory that is suspect in the release of the COVID-19 virus. You have the factor that he is mandated by his country of origin, Communist China, to take your data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. You have ANSI, who took over complete control over ANAB, and you have federal agencies and corporations on board. The thing that really gets better is that in 2017, Chris and Rosa, Randy was being introduced and advertised on the Department of Homeland Security until I opened my mouth and said something doesn't smell right. A private concern, a not-for-profit organization being advertised on a government website is a big no-no. And maybe things have changed. Things are so wacky in our world, who the hell knows anymore? But as soon as I exposed it, they took Randy off of there. But meanwhile, there is a guy, Phil Matheson, a guy who sits on ANSI's board from the Department of Homeland Security, who at the time was making $256,000 a year, probably working about 2 to 4 hours a year, possibly, with his federal salary. You ought to look into this, ladies and gentlemen, because that doesn't sound good to me. And by the way, at the time, it was a royalty payment. A royalty payment is a payment by the IRS. The IRS states that they have no clue how to tax that. So really, $256,000 plus his regular salary, and that's what happens. And on top of that, his buddy, Randy Dory's buddy, Zhao Jinwu, was sitting on the IF, an American company. He sat on the DHS. Does something smell bad to you? I think so. Think about this. Every one of the federal agencies, and you too, Chris, are included, the FBI, every one of the federal agencies sitting on ANSI have gotten their data taken. You have over 10 different registrars in China that can issue an ANAB accredited certification. Cybersecurity issue? Possibly. You have the factor that, excuse me, that Randy is complimenting the factor that Zhao Jinwu has been involved with our quality since 1994, and he's so proud and ecstatic that he handed over the keys to the kingdom. And again, Lockheed Martin sat on the IAF during this term of duty between 2015 and 2021. And isn't that nice? And here it is. Here's ANSI ANAB. And this is a reason, Rosa and Chris, that I did not join them, nor would I. You have the factor, this is Pakistan and Iran. This is one of the factors that I would not join them. They killed Americans. What kind of schmuck would sit on this organization? Especially, it's an American incorporated organization. Here goes the thing. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018, and they too sit over by Pakistan and Iran. What does that say about ANSI's board? What does it say about Tim Cook? What does it say about Andrew Updegrove? What does it say to what does it say to David Calhoun? What does it say to every organization that sits, corporation, that sits on ANSI during this time, and they're sitting over by Iran and Pakistan? I guess they condone what happened in 9/11. It appears that way. You have Zhao Jinwu, here he is, in Wuhan, China. Zhao Jinwu, at the time, was the chairman of the IAF, the International Accreditation Forum Incorporated in Delaware. He's been involved with our quality since 1994. He is also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services, which is equivalent to ANAP, handing an ISO 17025 certificate to this young lady here in the Wuhan, China, Bio-Level 4 laboratory. Okay, he is also, again, the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services in Beijing. And there you go. You also have, Chris and Rosa, you have Anthony Fauci, who was inquisitioned under Senate subcommittee hearing by Senator Rand Paul several months ago. And he asked about gain of function research. Well, Fauci says, I don't know, but let me just tell you this. Fauci belongs to the NIH. You have the NIH, CDC on board, over by the FDA, USDA, over by Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. Also, Abbott Medical is on there too. Isn't that tender with the baby food deal? Well, what happened is we looked far and wide, and we discovered that this is no first-time meeting for Wuhan, China. And this is what came out of a publicized China technical manual about upcoming events, second China-U.S. workshop on the challenges of emerging infections, laboratory safety, and global health security. Well, let me just say this. The first order of business is about gain-of-function research, and that this meeting was the second meeting in Wuhan, China, okay, of America and China, and it was held between May 17th and 19th, 2017. So what does that tell you? In fact, if you go ahead and read this further, it even talks about global pandemics and whatever. And if you want the booklet, by the way, Chris, if your people at the FBI can't handle research, here it is right here. I'll gladly ship it to you. Postage paid, though. You could pay the post. No, I'd send it to you free of charge. Okay? Call me, 203-556-1493. Or Daryl, TQRS@yahoo.com, and we're still not done. Here's a beautiful picture. Wuhan, China. You have Randy handing over leadership of the IAF Incorporated in Delaware to Zhao Jinwu, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. The best thing that really alludes to the factor of the release of the COVID virus out of the Wuhan lab is there was a deposition by Miss Pamela Sale. Pamela Sale was a vice president of ANAP as the accreditation body and as a registrar for laboratory, and also ASCLD lab, which is also owned by ANSI ANAP. They sit on ANSI and also A2LA. And the reason why you see this back here, this is actually, I was told this on a telephone recording by a Mr. Russ Cheney. Please, if you want more data on this, look up and Google David Calhoun, ANSI. David Calhoun, C-A-L-H-O-U-N, space ANSI, A-N-S-I, and you'll see Half a Nut Fuck You as the very first article. You can do Tim Cook too. You can do also Andrew Updegrove, U-P-E-D-A-G-R-O-V-E. It'll come up anyway. Just look these up and you'll find, or you can even Google Half a Nut Fuck You ANSI. That'll come up a lot of articles. And watch that and get an education. So let's get back to Pamela Sale. Pamela Sale was the vice president of all this mess. And this is what she said, and this actually solidifies all of these specialists who are saying, yes, the virus came from Wuhan. It was released from Wuhan. Well, Pamela Sale admits to it. Just listen to what she says. One of the issues is there is no commonly agreed upon set of standards that forensic labs, phlebotomy labs, or biolevel 4 labs around the country have to follow. Instead, there are informal guidelines that labs can choose to follow or not. This means that voluntary consensus standards fail since standards are meant to be uniform throughout a particular industry, laboratory, automotive, aerospace, electronics, medical, service industries, but they are not, as Ms. Sales illustrated in her deposition. Here it goes. For those people who want to sue Wuhan, that is not the people you want to sue. The real people you want to sue, it appears, is ANSI ANAP. They take full responsibility of being an underwriter for both the International Accreditation Forum and also the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's a fact. Right now you see this, but we have and we've showed it before, we have a government contract that says ANAP is the IAF's underwriter. We have that. We've showed that on many videos. If you want, please, I will send you the actual document, it's like a 120-page contract with the federal government about getting ISO certified for them, for the State Department. I will do that. So for those of you who don't know about what an underwriter is, this is an underwriter. It is. An underwriter is any party that evaluates and assumes another party's risk for a fee. Now we get into the meat and potatoes of this, business owners and my fellow citizens, and here we go. In 2009, Lockheed Martin gets hacked by China. As I told you before, Lockheed, and I will show you, Lockheed Martin sits on the IAF and also sits on ANSI. As you can see, they're sitting there. They got hacked by China. And remember this, Zhao Jinwu, the Chinese national who took over, was handed over the IF in 2015. He's been involved with our quality since 1994, so it's very plausible they were hacked by China. This is from 2009 CNN, when CNN was very good. 2009 has the article concerning the F-35 being taken. The NSA also reported on the fact of the F-35 being taken. You also, another article, and we tried to warn Lockheed Martin. Now, we have many customers of ours that supply materials in. So this lady, her name is Lisa Gross at the time in 2015, was an SAS ethics officer. She didn't know what she was taking. Actually, she was given the information to tell us because she wouldn't know her. I don't even think she knows her job, but that's neither here nor there. Let me read this to you. To Daryl Guberman. In order to meet our customer requirements, Lockheed Martin deals with entities that are certified through the International Accreditation Forum. Your company is not a register of the IF, and therefore your accreditation is not recognized by Lockheed Martin. The reason why she said that is because Lockheed Martin sits on the IAF. So they're basically buttering their bread. Do you see how they loaded that one? That Lockheed says, oh, we're not the part of the IAF, nor would we be. Would you be if they're part of China? Are you kidding me? You got to be crazy. As we say in the Yiddish part of quality, Meshuggah means nuts. So here they are sitting on the IAF, and they're an associate member. That associate member has control over policy. Now we go on further. We have the factor of United Technologies. United Technologies also got hacked by China in 2012, Sikorsky Aircraft. So you have all of this mess. And we continue now. In the Connecticut Mirror was this is what it said. With China's okay, Lockheed Martin to close on Sikorsky Aircraft, the purchase, right? On top of it, this is what it said in one of the sentences within that article. It said, but Connecticut lawmakers praised Lockheed Martin for clearing its last regulatory hurdle. And this is what it really should have said in the yellow. Connecticut lawmakers, Rosa DeLauro, Richard Blumenthal, Chris Murphy, and Jim Himes praise our #1 military contractor, Lockheed Martin, for working with communist China. Do you see that, business owners? Do you like that? We're going to bring Rosa back out here. And Rosa, thank you again. Hold on. Every time she sits down, the dust accumulates. Rosa, well, how do you like them apples? You were involved in the factor of praising Lockheed Martin. Christopher Wray, on the other hand, who dealt with China, Christopher Wray, on the other hand, has always stuck to his guns about saying the whole of the Chinese society is a threat to the U.S., and that Americans must step up to defend themselves. Well, I will read this once again to you, business owners, and say this in the most simplest terms possible. What she did is she approved Lockheed Martin for working with a communist country. Yes, Lockheed Martin did work with an international regulator, and I find it very much a disgusting display of government out of control, where you have Christopher Wray saying China is bad. You have Rosa DeLauro, who sits, by the way, getting disbursements from Lockheed Martin. Those are going to be in the center of my video here. It's called description. It will be in there. The different, I'll probably be 2020, 2019 actually. Rosa DeLauro was getting paid off by Lockheed Martin through their, it's called distribution. And what happens with that is you'll find all 50 states, Democrats and Republicans, all getting bribed by Lockheed Martin. While Christopher Wray stayed strong to American principles and values, Rosa DeLauro, I think the dye possibly on her head leached into her brain and has affected her way to vote or to rule or whatever she's doing, whatever. As you can see, what she's holding there is she's showing the different varieties. You have the comparison of Lockheed Martin's F-35 to the J-31. You're having Sikorsky Aircraft, the UH-60A, which is the Black Hawk, compared to the Z-20 Black Hawk helicopter that China's making. The only issue is, underneath the engine cowlings, I bet you the engines say Made in USA. Who knows? That's it, ladies and gentlemen. I leave it here in this video today, and I'm sorry for the length of it, but this video today was Representative Rosa DeLauro, Connecticut, takes Lockheed hush money, disbursements it's called, while China approves Sikorsky purchase. And it's a fact. 203-556-1493 or Daryl, TQRS at yahoo.com. And as I said before, the reason why we do this, business owners, if somebody does not stand up against these monsters, our country will be, it's being derailed now. So stand up and be counted. I look forward to hearing from you.